can move forward, that'd be great.
Would it be okay to close the doors?
Sure.
Sure.
So when Hagop asked me to give a talk to the ARPA Institute, I was thinking about what am I going to talk about. I am not a researcher, although I've got an electrical engineering degree, and although I've never designed anything that has worked. So, and I told Hagop, I said, the only thing that I really feel like I'm passionate about, and it's also relevant for the audience that he's speaking to, would be Armenia, because that has been a lifelong passion of mine. And I'm happy to share with you some of the thoughts, some of the experiences and observations that I've had in going to Armenia since 1996, and then also making my ukhd, my 40-year ukhd in 1999. Most of you know what ukhd is, which is a long-term commitment. So why is Armenia poor? That has been a central question that I've been asking myself for well over 50 trips to Armenia over the last 14 years. And I've also traveled to 30 other countries over my career, and just both from a business standpoint and then also from just visiting. I've always been a student of why certain things work, why certain things don't work, why do some nations excel, some other nations don't excel. So I've always been, in that inquiry, and I think I don't have any prolific or sort of really poignant answers to give you, but I'll at least share with you my observations. So these are some of the popular explanations of why Armenia is quote-unquote poor. Armenia has limited natural resources. I don't know. I mean, in my environmental activism, I have come to learn that just one mine is estimated to have $25 billion worth of, material. Armenia's got hostile neighbors. True, I think, but just like all neighbors, over time, I think as we become internally stronger and economically more viable, those relationships, I think, will kind of take care of themselves. I think quite a lot of hostility comes from poverty. And so, yes, I think that one, I think you can just sort of do a check mark and say, yeah, Armenia today has some hostile or at least unfriendly neighbors. Another thing that I hear quite often is that Armenians, the Armenian diaspora, or the international community is quite indifferent about Armenia. It's kind of an isolated country, there's no oil there, so who cares? I am amazed that every time I go to Armenia, I've been to 40 villages just this year, that almost every village I go to, people will tell me about some diasporan that has come there, has done something, has built something, has invested in something. So I just don't buy it that the diaspora is indifferent. As far as the international community is concerned, look, we're at a kind of a strategic place, and between Iran and Turkey and Russia, and it's just a strategic place. I think the international community likes us to be kind of irrelevant so that they can push and pull us as they wish. So I don't think that's necessarily one of the causes of why Armenia is poor. Everybody points to the corrupt government. But there's a lot of corrupt governments everywhere. I guess I could point to our own government as our own government in the US being very corrupt. I mean, you look at what happened in 2008 during the crisis, and the bailouts that happened, but why is not America sort of falling on itself? Why is it still somewhat vibrant, somewhat going forward, somewhat, despite all sorts of government issues? I would say even to the point of irrelevance, right? Most Americans don't vote, but they go on living their lives. So the corrupt government explanation, although there's some merit to it, I personally don't subscribe as that's the central issue for why Armenia is quote-unquote poor. Lack of civic maturity and engagement. I think that one is clearly something that we need to kind of examine. I'm telling you not from a point of view of a tourist of Armenia. My family and I moved to Armenia 2 years ago to live there. I told you this year I've been to 40 villages. And I talk to people everywhere. Every village I go to, I engage people. I'll sleep over in their houses. I'll talk to them. I'll engage them in conversations. And later on in my presentation, I'll tell you what I think is the central issue, of why Armenia is sort of stuck. An obsolete mindset. That's another thing that a lot of people point to. I think there's a generational sort of divide that's happening in Armenia. If you talk to a lot of younger people, which I do, I spend a lot of time training and talking about entrepreneurship. I talk to them about community building and all that stuff. And I would say that the under 30 set are incredibly open-minded, incredibly gifted. And then you talk to the people that are kind of in their later 30s or 40s, and they know it all. I mean, if you know it all, you're not going to learn anything, right? I mean, if I know everything, and every second sentence out of your mouth is like, yes, I know. And I go, so why is it that your life is so crappy? If you know everything, and there's nothing for you to learn from interaction, so there's that issue, there's that generational divide, but I don't think it's unique to Armenia. I don't think it's unique to Armenia. I had the same type of situations in China, and in Thailand, in Japan, I mean, all these places that I've been. And you just kind of have to be cognizant. It's sort of like the weather, right? I mean, you can complain about the weather, but it is what it is. You go outside, it's raining. Okay, you can complain all you want, but it's raining. And I think that's something that we want to kind of be cognizant of about this quote-unquote obsolete mindset. It depends on who you talk to. Obsolete education system. I think you can point to that. I mean, I think you can fundamentally look at parts of the education system is doing very well, like schools like IVE and sort of what Sam Simonian has done with TUMO. So there's a lot of bright spots in a sea of crap, for lack of a better word. So those are the popular sort of explanations of why Armenia is poor. There are some others. There's some nuances that we all need to kind of be cognizant of. There's some massive tectonic shifts that has happened all over the world over the last 25, 30 years. One of them is Soviet versus 21st century models. Soviet system, centrally planned, everything, 5 people decide what's going to happen for a whole country, versus modern, 21st century model, which is more decentralized, where that's the paradigm shift. And we're sort of witnessing that struggle, that fight between the two. Armenia is no different. I mean, I think that's sort of where we are. We've got a generation of leaders that were trained with centrally planned mindsets. It's sort of like telling, the conversation between the world is flat versus the world is round. I mean, it took 100 years for even the academics of that time to figure out that, to agree that the world is actually, no, it is round. And I think that's sort of where we are. And the 21st century model has to be driven by the newer generation with the support of the more enlightened older generation. There is this meism in Armenia, but there's this meism in the US too, right? I mean, these are the two central, or sort of two major places that I live. So this whole idea of community is kind of new, right? It's sort of like you go to Armenia, you go to somebody's house, the building looks like crap, there's trash in the front of it, then you go inside and it's like, oh, it's like, everything's fantastic, clean, all that stuff, right? So it's that whole mindset of me, my child. So if you're so me-focused, it's very difficult to get things done that is more community-based. This whole idea of ruling people versus serving people. I talk to people that are not necessarily at the highest levels of government. Sometimes I talk to those guys too. If you talk individually to most of these people, they're actually thinking that they're serving people. And some of them are. Vartan Marashyan, who is now running Repat Armenia, was working for the Diaspora ministry. Now that's a guy that came back from Russia, came back from Moscow to work in Armenia to help repatriation. So what's the difference between Vartan in the government and Vartan outside of the government? He's the same person, with the same convictions, with the same principles. I see no difference. But Vartan is out of the government. So one of the things that we have to learn is how do we dialogue with each other? I mean, all day long we're just throwing mud at each other. There's not that many of us to begin with. So I think this whole culture of how do you dialogue, how do you organize, how do you how do you find consensus? Look, I was a supporter of Rafi Hovhannisyan during the presidential elections. But the fact remains the fact. The largest gathering only drew about 20,000 people. Now you can come up with all sorts of arguments and say, the roads were closed, and people were, threatened and all that stuff. But the bottom line of it is, 20,000 people showed up. It is back to that meism. So we got to kind of look at the fundamental reasons of what is it that hope, keeps people in their houses. What is it that propels an Armenian parent to tell his or her son, find a way not to serve in the army? I mean, these are fundamental values that all of us need to grapple with and understand why are these types of conversations going on versus the alternative. Top-down versus bottom-up thinking. It is, again, that's part of the remnant of the central planning, centralized sort of decision-making. I'm an entrepreneur, so I build companies, and in my companies we say, the best ideas can come from anywhere. So we try to engage everybody's mind and everybody's hands. It's not that one brain works and 50 hands implement. And I think that bottom-up thinking, which is engagement of people. I do these workshops in Armenia, 100 or 150 people will show up. And they'll all show up as individuals, but they'll leave after a day as part of a community. Like 4 companies were created within one workshop. 2 of them still exist. The other 2 that don't exist actually connected and created a 3rd company. So these are things that we know. These are things that we in the West, or at least we in California, I should say. California is a very special place because we've sort of this is like the open-minded part of the world. And these are things that are transferable. but in order for it to sustain, you have to kind of work at it. Extractive versus creative value creation. You know, right now Armenia has focused most of its strategy towards extractive value creation. What I mean by that is mining. What I mean by that is our industries that are fundamentally saying, you know, there's wealth in the land, let's take the wealth out and sell it, and that's how we're gonna sort of create dollars or create money to pay for stuff. My good friend who passed away recently, Arthur Bogosian, would say, one mind is worth more than one mine. I mean, just think about it. Like, one mind could create a Skype, or the company that we created, Integrity, that was sold for well over $100 million. It took a lot of work, took 5 years, 7 years of really hard work, but we didn't take anything out of the ground. We didn't cut any trees, we didn't displace any villagers. So again, it's a question of priorities, and us in the diaspora, we have to engage in that conversation. Now, by the way, I'm not against mining, you know, in general, but I'm against mining the way it's being done in Armenia. So how do we engage in that conversation? How do we present our demands? How do we present our way of thinking? It's really fundamentally about not talking at each other, but talking to each other. It's a very different mindset. When you show up with an open mind, that you know, maybe you don't have all the answers. Fighting against versus creating the new realities. I mean, a lot of times when younger people tell me, oh, the government this, the government that, and all that stuff, and I go, what are you doing? How are you spending your time? Okay, I get it. The government is corrupt. The government is doing bad things. But how are you? What is your value creation? What do you know? Unfortunately, 9 times out of 10, the response I get is that they are not even investing in themselves. Most young people, especially in the villages of Armenia, have no skills. So, magic one, the government changes. We have clean government, and they're in their place, and they're governing, and they're actually serving the people. Hundreds of thousands of Armenian young people have no skills. The skills that they have is to dig stuff out of the ground. So I have zero patience for big talkers and stupid people. I mean, if you're not even investing in yourself to learn programming or learn English or learn something that's sellable, you have no right. So do you want to govern? I mean, this is the scary part, right? And that's what it's going to take me to my next point of why I believe Armenia is poor. So this creation of the new realities. The government, by the way, never got in my way. They never came and said, Al, you can't create your company in Armenia. I asked my friends that are all mostly 19, I go, have they come and gotten in your way? Not really. If you want to do it, you can do it. Finally, exclusive versus inclusive problem solving. Exclusive says, you know, this 100 people that are, let's say, in the power structures should solve all of our problems. Where in the world, just point me to one place in the world that the government has solved all the problems of their citizenry without the citizenry's engagement or participation? Where? It does not exist. I mean, we need to kind of sit back and say, what the hell are we doing to be demanding the types of stuff that we're demanding? And I think that's, again, I'm not pro-government. I'm pro-rationality of what are we producing, what are we bringing to the table, what are our ideas, what are our plans, what are our programs, and then And then what are we willing to do to sort of disseminate those ideas? There is a crisis of values. I mean, I can tell you this much. My biggest issue in Armenia right now is to convince people to stay. And they say, why? They say, you're outside. I go, true. But I wasn't born there, and I can have my own reasons, right? I wasn't born there. But those are all cop-outs. The reality is that I'm living outside most of my time. I do go to Armenia quite a bit, but the reality is I'm living here. So this crisis of values that I want to bring up is, what does Armenianness mean? What does it mean? I mean, what does it give me? Well, let me tell you something. This is the story that I tell in Armenia quite a bit. All of my initial investors were Armenian. All of my initial customers were Armenian. All of my initial advisors were Armenian. I have gotten an immense amount of value being Armenian and leveraging the global Armenian network. So this is the story that is not told. This is the story that is not disseminated. And this is part of the solution. So I don't think that it's everybody, all of us going back is the solution. It's really the engagement of the two parts, the diaspora and the homeland, that I think is going to be the way out of this mess that we're in. How do you treat your neighbor? Look, these are basic stuff. To me, that's what I've witnessed, which is the fundamental way of how people, treat each other. Are they nice to each other? Can you trust them? Will they take care of your kid? Will you take care of their kid? That fundamental sort of fabric that sort of holds everybody together. That's the stuff that we have not been paying attention to for 22 years, or maybe 92 years. My village, I call it my village because I spent a lot of time there. We built a mountain retreat there a few years back. 90% of that village's population are Vanetsis, Marashtsis, and Alashkertsis. They're all Western Armenian. When we're talking about how these people arrived there, they were all refugees. So we're talking about this trauma that's been going on and on and on. And somehow you got to invest in community, those community building structures. I started just cleaning the street. As I was walking, I would just pick up trash. After, first or second time they started looking at it, they're like, no, we'll do it. I go, why don't you come join me? Well, that's an example of how you build community. You don't go lecture people. You start doing things that you think is the right thing to do. Now that village is a beautiful village now. You won't find trash in the streets. People have started planting flowers in front of their houses. Like everybody that comes to our village, they're like, wow, it's such a charming village. Now that's one out of 900 villages. There's some other diasporas that have done it in other villages. This is the good thing, right? There's a lot of things that we're doing as a nation that it needs to be promoted and talked about. It's not all bad, at least from my point of view. We need this national dialogue of how do we transform our value system as a nation? A good friend of mine said, like the Jewish people would say, we're the chosen people. And that narrative has kept them together for 2,000 years or more. And there's value in being Jewish. That when you need support, when you need guidance, there's always somebody that will sort of look at you. We do it as well. I mean, at least in my life, that has been very proven. I've gotten a lot from being Armenian. But that's the narrative that we're not talking about. These are the value systems that we need to, as a nation, like really discuss it in our churches, in our schools, in our homes, that talks about what is it? What does it mean to be? Why should we stay Armenian? I think these are things that I want to kind of throw it back to the sociologists in our midst, and to really start discussing it. What does that mean? What is the values that we're sort of imparting on our kids? And we don't need to go far from Southern California. I mean, we have lots of issues here too. primarily these are value issues. There's a crisis of hope. How do we transcend that crisis? It's through action. I mean, I can tell you that in the IT industry that I sort of spend most of my time in, the level of negativity and cynicism and defeatism is very low. Very low. The rest of the population is very high. There's this sort of like massive divide. Why? Because in the IT industry, there's a lot of exciting things happening. People don't feel as isolated as the rest of the society. This culture of everybody for themselves, everybody for their own little family, has to be transcended somehow. If it's not transcended, I'm afraid we as a group will not evolve. I mean, on the outside, everybody said, oh, Armenians always survive and all that stuff. Well, I don't know. I don't know. I think we as a group have to kind of, each of us individually and as a group, take that on. Of how do we transcend and transform this meism and just, let me take care of myself and let me get a bigger house and let me get a nicer car. Whereas the value of Armenia has to be held up at somewhere there, Maybe if it's not the top, maybe it's near the top. There's a lack of confidence in all of the traditional centers of leadership right now in Armenia. At the church level, at the government level, educational institutions. I was in Tebut in September, and I said, when was the last time that the Armenian Catholicos came to Tebut? They said, never. They don't remember it. Well, this is a community in conflict right now. There's a massive mine being exploited in their backyard. Some of them work in it because they don't have any other choice. And there's really no leadership. There's really no one there, for people to talk to. There's no functioning church. Some other people will point to and say, why are we building $20 million churches when the churches that we have now are empty? Nobody goes to them. Again, there's this crisis of hope. So we have to challenge. We have to challenge all of our institutions towards more transparency, more dialogue. The government level, we talked about it. The educational institutional level. We have a company called Synopsis, which is a US-based company that is doing some good stuff, but at the same time they're doing, I think some of their practices is not so good, right? A university should not be the domain of one company. There's a bunch of AESA members here, they'll tell you, right? You want to have a certain level of, independence of thought and all that stuff, and you don't want to just create technicians. The Armenian population is paying for taxes for those buildings, and one company is sort of benefiting from it. I think that needs to be reviewed. And without moral and competent leadership, the masses will perish or immigrate. Right now immigration is that pressure valve. Again, back to the meism. If you lose hope that individually the only thing that you can do is to immigrate, you'll immigrate. That's the rational choice, by the way. This is not about nationalism, it's not about patriotism. I've had a couple of people most of the people that I've employed or have worked with me are there, but a few of them have left. And they would come to me with tears in their eyes, saying, I feel like I'm, Davajanum Kezi. And sometimes I look at them and I go, you know what? Is there absolutely no hope for you to stay? And some people get there, the ones that are staying there, why they're staying there? Because, I talk to them all the time. I'm saying, hang in there. We're coming. We're doing stuff. We're going to do more, just hang in there. You want to start a company? Let me invest in it. Let me get some other people to invest in it. So if you're building your companies, if you buy a house and you know, you kind of start, you yourself are now teaching, it's rare that people will leave. But it is the rational choice right now. And by the way, again, it's not isolated to Armenia. Poland is losing a lot of population. Russia is losing massive population. That's why they're importing Armenians. Right? This is a global thing that's going on. So we can be emotional about it. It is highly emotional, but you know, I just don't think that that's the way to address it. There's other ways to address what is going on. So this is the central reason why I think Armenia is poor. And if we don't solve this problem, I think we're just in for a really long, hard ride as a group. It's the flight of the creative class. And who is the creative class? The scientists, the engineers, the designers, the artists, the filmmakers, the architects, the entrepreneurs. These are the people that are somehow either they have, I don't know whether recently they were talking about entrepreneurs being, you know, like born and not made. I don't know. I don't know what the scientific part of it is, but bottom line of it is, in each nation, in each country, if the creative class gives up, you're screwed. I mean, it's like there's also this situation of sometimes there's an irreversibility to it. The good thing about being Armenian and Armenia is that we're a small group. So as these people leave, it's also easier to bring, like with a few thousand infusion of a few thousand creative class, you can really change the entire course of the country. So it's not a huge country, right? I mean, it's not a huge population. So why did they leave? There's a study that just came out a couple of weeks ago. It's on the net. You guys can all go download it and read it. And there's a lot of scientific sort of analysis of why people leave. But the fundamental thing is two things. One is most of the creative class, they're rational people. I mean, they've driven themselves to this level of creativity. They've taken the risks. They're not kind of like your typical couch potato. They're actually creators. They're creating things. So in a world, that is, rapidly, globalized and globalizing, people go where the opportunities are. Now, some of these people leave and build their companies, and then they come back. There's several examples. It's not a one-way thing, by the way. There's several Hayasdan that have left Armenia, have gone to Silicon Valley or LA or whatever, New York, and now they're coming back. They're creating their companies back in Armenia. I know at least 10, 12 different companies that have been created that way. So that needs to be talked about, because those are the models that we want to talk about. If we're constantly sitting here talking about everybody's leaving and all that stuff, then all you can do is just get depressed and become inactive. They also leave because they don't want to deal with idiots. I mean, what does that mean? Obviously, especially the industry that I know a lot about, the technology industry, it's all run basically on efficiency. It's run on, creation of value based on your brain power and whatever. So if some people could be just turned off by being stopped at the airport to pay 100% duty on their computer, or whatever, 30% duty on their computer. I mean, it could be like a little thing, right? But if it's a community, if those community sort of values are strengthened, that will stop from that guy or that girl from moving. So these are the two sort of anecdotal things that I see that drives people to immigrate. So that, I believe, is the core issue of why Armenia is poor and why people are leaving, which is this creative class is leaving, and if the creative class is leaving, for every one person that I consider, or not I, but by the sort of classical definitions in the creative class leaves, that could be potentially 100 to 200 employees. Because these are the people that are the risk takers, and they're going to go take their risk somewhere else. And these are the people that we need to woo back. These are the people that we need to kind of bring back. So what now? I think there's 3 foundations for positive change that are possible right now. 1 is commitment, 2 is competency, 3 is community. So commitment, it's not a spectator sport. I mean, if you're committed, right? I mean, just because you've had some failures or you face some failures, you can't just give up. I mean, we've had, my company, Turkey, that was bought by VMware, came near extinction 10 times during its 7-year life. But you know, every time you find a way that you're committed to see this thing through. You know, long live 40-year rules. I encourage all of you to do 40-year rules or 10-year rules, which is committing to something that might outlive you. You know, I think these are the types of things that that have sustainability. Money plus time spent, that's the test of commitment. How much time are you spending engaging with others in your own community? And maybe like in this group of, I don't know, 60, 70 people, there could be 2 or 3 projects that you can sort of adopt and say, yeah, we're committed to seeing this project through. You know, and maybe we will have 1,000 projects. And in coordination, that might be the you know, the solution to our issues. Commitment is not negotiable. I mean, once you're committed, you're committed. You know, I'm climbing that mountain. Okay, I'm committed. I might go up to 2nd base camp, 3rd base camp, need to come back down. Maybe I need to try again a month from now. But that's my commitment. What is your commitment? What is our commitment? What is our individual commitment, and what is our community? You know, what is our collective community? You know, commitment. Commitment is only proven through action. When people talk a lot, and then you ask them, you say, okay, exactly what are you doing? How are you investing in your own brain, in your own sort of skill sets, and how are you using those skill sets to give back to the community? Oftentimes, unfortunately, both here and in Armenia, oftentimes the answers that come back are not that impressive. They're just not. Commitment is tested through overcoming failures. I mean, that's just part of the process, right? I mean, if we're sitting here and saying, okay, these people that are in power or whatever, and they're not doing their job, and we're not really coming up with strategies and solutions that we could propose, and then also it's not just having one conversation. It's not going to Hagop and saying, Hagop, you know, I think you're doing this thing wrong. And here's my 3 ideas. And then Hagop takes it and doesn't do anything with it. And then you're like, well, I gave my ideas. Well, ideas are a dime a dozen. It's are you wanting to go back to Hagop and saying, Hagop, you know, I really think, did you think about those 3 ideas? Is that level of engagement. We have to start treating each other that way. Holding each other up accountable, holding our governments accountable, holding our churches accountable. If you're not part of the Armenian church, you have no right to criticize it. You don't. If you don't live in Armenia, or at least you don't spend a substantial amount of your time in Armenia, you have no right. You have no moral right, and nor do you have any rational right to criticize those people. I mean, if you want to do something, go do something. Get engaged. No lip service. You know, it's like, that's the other thing that in Armenia, when I get engaged in conversations, I go, you know, what are we talking about? Because you might be talking about 25 different subjects in one conversation, which is like, it's like random conversation. It's like a combustion engine but with no thrust. The engineers will crucify me with this, but there's no direction. There's 50 vectors of conversation. What are we talking about? What problem are we trying to solve? Competence. Lots of failure on the way. So, you know, we have right now, just in this group, for instance, just think about it. If we had just did a repository of what we each know, what we each are competent in, and then connecting the people that are competent in certain things here to people that in Armenia want that competency. Just imagine that. You know, Akko goes to Armenia, and I don't know how many lectures do you give per year. I mean, that, you know, you can't really, I mean, that's the example. You go there, you engage with people, you listen to the questions, you answer the questions, you ask them if they got it. If they didn't get it, you teach them again. It's that long-term commitment. It's not going to be overnight. There's no government permissions required. I went to Tellwood a year and a half ago, and people told me, this is done. This is done. The decisions have been made. The mine is going to be exploited. We have no choice. I said, okay. I said, what do you guys want to do? You know, we went to a women's group, and I gave a small talk in a women's group. I said, you know, they said, well, we need this. I said, what do you need? What do you guys need? I mean, how can we help? And they were complaining a lot. And I said, so look, I said, I'm just one person. What do you guys need? They said, I need a laptop and a projector. I came back to Yerevan. I got a friend to donate a laptop. I sent a projector. And we sent a bunch of environmental sort of education DVDs by accident as well. So 6 months later, I'm getting these emails back and forth. They're like, we want to do this alternative economic development. You know, somebody wants to be a hairdresser. Somebody wants to, you know, make honey. I mean, all sorts of things, right? Next trip, I went on a hike with Hayasdan Armenian, who was sitting on the Turkey Foundation's board. And I said, Haru, don't you guys do entrepreneurship training in the rural areas? He's like, yeah, we do. I said, well, guess what? We have 25 entrepreneurs in Tellwood and Shinola to get entrepreneurship training. Next thing you know, Haru is, you know, contacting his guy in Armenia, the entrepreneurship training happens, and 9 entrepreneurs just got funding. Armenia's future is 1,000 of those types of events where you go and connect. You go and connect. You go hang out. I mean, the last several years, my family and I have not vacationed anywhere else but Armenia. You know what? And it's not by sacrifice, by the way. We love it. We feel alive there. We feel like our lives mean something. Now go tell that to the friends that say Armenia has no future. As long as we're kind of engaged, Armenia has a future and it has a bright future. I want to give you 3 case studies. Integrium, which was the company that I co-founded in 2005, now employs 65 people in Armenia. VMware, the company that bought us, just made an announcement a month ago that they're going to make a $100 million investment in Armenia in the next 5 years to expand that group to 400 people. And the reason that they are in Armenia is because of not because of the cheap labor. We were never there for the cheap labor. They're there for the creative minds that Armenia produces. Case study 1. Case study 2, Instigate company. Vahag Bohosian. This guy has created like 10, 12 regional training centers. He's teaching people in Karbajar how to do mobile programming. How many of you know where Karbajar is? Okay, Karbajar is Kelbajar, which is that area between Armenia and Artsakh. Now, that's a positive person, by the way, that is going to a disputed territory, which has, I think, what, 1,500, I think, Levon can tell me how many people live there, like 1,500 Armenians live in that whole entire area. And he's teaching to those people how to do programming, and he's outsourcing work from Yerevan to the people in Karbajar. He's created them in Artsakh, he's created them in Goris, he's creating them in Tallinn. And you know how I met Vahag? I met him because he heard I was doing this thing in Tellwood, and he brought 40 people, 40 dancers. He's an Armenian traditional dance nut. I mean, he loves it. He brings 40 people to dance in Tevut and teach the kids of Tevut how to dance Armenian dances. These are the people that I hang out with, and it's very hard for me to become depressed about Armenia's future when these are the people that I hang out with. PixArt. How many people have an Android phone? Not an iOS. Well, actually, even iOS. They're on iOS and Android. PixArt is an Armenian-based company created by a friend of mine, Ioannis Savoyan, that has had 70 million downloads. It's the second largest photo app behind Instagram. And you know Instagram was bought by Facebook for $1 billion. So these are the things that I want to talk about. This is the future of the company. This is the future of the country. This is the creative class. We need 1,000 people like Hovhannes and Vahag, and then Armenia will have a future, which is based on creating value for the global market. It's not just based in Armenia, it's we're actually contributing to the world. So our collective choice as a group, as a nation, as however you want to call it, is engagement or irrelevance. I mean, if you're not engaged, at least be kind enough not to talk. And don't just send money, because that's the worst thing that you can do, which is my next topic. Community is a full contact sport. Building community mindset is hard work. It's taken my wife and I don't know, 6, 7 years of just walking the village, talking to the villagers. Look, they live in a different world. We have to sit with them, we have to go to their houses, you know, we invite them over, and you know, my wife Sabine is sitting here, I mean, she's like the unofficial mayor of that village, because people understand that we're not there to lecture anybody. Look, if it wasn't for those people that are living there, none of us would have an Armenia to go to now. And that would be a kind of an unfortunate, poor reality for us. I mean, so it's really about meeting people where they are and meeting them at equal level. And trust me, once you sort of connect with people at that level, the change starts happening really fast. From our village, about 20 kids go to Tumo. Tumo is this amazing center that is unique in the world. Actually, Spanish people, Bulgarian people, a bunch of different countries are sending emissaries to go to Tumo to see what an amazing center is being created. That's another diaspora in Armenian, Sam Simonia from Dallas, that created that. 6,000 kids learn about web development, animation, film editing. I forget the fourth one. But this 6,000 kids from 12 years old to 18 years old get after-school training. We should have 10, 20 of these things in the country. Engaging on the ground is essential. As a matter of fact, I am now to a point where I tell people, unless you know the people specifically that are doing projects that you want to support personally, sending money is actually sometimes the wrong thing to do. Sending money might make you feel less guilty. But I say instead of sending $1,000, buy a ticket for $1,000. Okay, $1,500. It's more expensive. Just go there. Go there, go to a village, you know, buy something. People that come to our village, I go, you know what, when you leave my village, there should be like maybe 2,000 dirhams in your pocket. When we started our project, there was one village store, there's now 4 village stores. That village is not going to die. Because people are seeing that there's, you know, there's commerce, there's activity, people are going, coming, and, you know, they're learning from each other. Everybody that comes to our center, we say, you know, just walk the street, walk, you know, go, there's a bunch of different things, you know, engage with people, talk to the people. And so that's very important, to kind of, you know, engage on the ground level. You know, researching, you know, what is it, like, sometimes we show up with answers. We go to a village and we, you know, people that have lived there for hundreds of years, we show up and we say, oh, you know what you should do? No, first shut up and listen. What is it that they need? Go to the school, talk to the people, engage with people, and just ask questions. You know, how can we help? You know, maybe there's small thing that you can do to support. So how can we engage? These are some interesting statistics to ponder. There's 1,441 schools in Armenia. There's 915 communities, basically like 900 villages, even though some of these areas they call urban, it's still a village. So there's like 900 villages and like 15 what you can consider cities, okay? Number of Armenian school children, 385,000 from grade 1 to 12. Number of university students, 95,000, but only 5,000 are in science, technology, engineering, and math, which is where all the jobs are, by the way. We have 19,000 economics majors. And all of them come out and they can't find jobs and they're frustrated. And they're like, well, we went got a university education. We're like, yeah, but in what? I mean, it's just sort of like, here, right? I mean, there's 800,000 jobs that are going vacant in the U.S. That's why they're importing all these developers. So Armenia's proposed 2014 budget for education is $300 million. So it's not lack of money. It's really the lack of what I'm talking about, the creative class, the people that are willing to say, you know what, I'm going to go there. I'm going to go. There's a lot of kids that have graduated here from the U.S. that can't find jobs, but that would be amazing in Armenia. I mean, Birthright Armenia is an organization that is very near and dear to my heart, and 1,200 diasporan kids have gone to Armenia and have brought massive change in the communities that they've engaged. So these are the positive. Number of Facebook users in Armenia as of September 2013, 362,000. It is very difficult to keep people down, especially young people. I mean, you can see the protest actions that was going on yesterday, I think, when the government has decided to tax the intellectual workers, basically, another 5% or whatever. This is mostly developers, mostly programmers. And suddenly they have a couple thousand people out in the streets. We can leverage our collective cognitive surplus. How many people know what I mean by cognitive surplus? Okay, no one. So cognitive surplus is basically, we've all learned a lot during our sort of training, school, whatever. And a lot of it is in our brains. And because we live in the West, we also have some extra time. So that cognitive surplus is that 10 hours, 12 hours, in some cases 20, 30, 40 hours, in the case of Noah, probably 50 hours a week, that you're giving to Armenia, or you're sort of putting that skill set that you have to work. You're donating that work. That's cognitive surplus, which means that we have knowledge, we have skill sets that is useful somewhere else, could be even useful to each other here, but that is sitting dormant in our heads. That's what I think Arthur was talking about when he said one mind is worth more than one mind. Is that, this is something that is shareable. And if I share it, doesn't mean that I lose it, right? You get it too, and then if you share it to somebody else, they get it too. So if we have a million committed Armenians that commit 10 hours a month, not much, right? I mean, how many hours is there in a month? Can somebody tell me? Math majors? Right? There's 780 hours, like so roughly, like 168 times 4 plus 3 days, additional 72. I can do the math. So there's like 800 hours, roughly 800 hours per month that we can, no, there's 720 hours per month, right? 720 hours per month. And all we're asking is 10 hours. Like just give 10 hours, like 10 hours, I can pick a village and we can broadcast you in Skype teaching English to 30 mothers that usually bring their kids to the women's meeting. Imagine that cognitive surplus, the return on that cognitive surplus. You're spending 2 hours of your time per week, 2.5 hours, let's say, and there's 30 women over there with probably 2 or 3 kids with them. Now imagine the impact of that. We know that English language, those people that know English in Armenia, whether they're in tourism, whether they're in IT, whether they're in banking, earn more. As a matter of fact, you earn anywhere from 20 to 25% more if you're fluent in English. But in the regions of Armenia, it's still, it's a massive problem. English is not taught very well. It's completely transparent, right? Nobody's gonna get in your way. Nobody's gonna tell you or you, hey, I'm gonna put a stop to your Skype and you can't talk to these people. So blame all you want. Blame the government, blame, the weather, blame whoever. That's just you saying that me and my 5 friends are adopting that village. It is that easy. That's what we've done. I mean, I'm not talking about ideas and sort of like ideals only. I'm saying that in action, these are things that will move the needle for the country. There's a lot of women in the border regions that don't have their husbands around. In one village I walked in, 1/3 of the men had died at the front. 1/3 were serving at the front now for $400 a month, being sniped at every day. And 1/3 were in Russia working. Do you think those women need some sort of like moral support by women here? It's just a simple Skype connection. And it's that desire that says, you know what? I can be a big sister to somebody. I can be that person that actually listens. It doesn't take much. These are simple things, but that's what holds people together. That's what the whole meaning of community is. We can open vote on projects. I'm associated with a group called One Armenia. Almost every project that gets green-lighted for fundraising gets voted. Most of this stuff is voted on Facebook. It's more younger people, younger demographic, but anybody can participate. So again, these are not centrally planned. These are things that are grassroots up, bottom up. So on a national quest for excellence, it has to be based on a widely adopted new value system. And we have to develop that value system. And it's not that complex to develop that value system, really. It's just basically an open voting, electronic, right? Nobody can mess with it. We'll make it all transparent, right? The rooms where the tallies are happening will be all transparent with windows. And we can get engagement from everybody. All you need is an internet connection. The technology is here. The desire is here. We just need to now get some people that can sort of take that on and say, yeah, we'll create it moving forward. Engage all willing and competent Armenians by area of expertise to donate their cognitive surplus. Look, there are some people, some of my friends that were refusing to go to Armenia. There's 2 different camps. One camp was, oh, I love Armenia so much that I will be so depressed if I go and see all of that stuff. And I would say, you know what, don't worry about it. I'll shield you. You'll always be with me. You'll be in my apartment, in my car, in my friends, my restaurant. You'll never see any ugliness. And now they're going there more. I've actually taken American friends there that are now going there more than me. I'm not talking about American Armenians. I'm talking about Americans, right? The second group, so that's the first group. I don't want to, I love Armenia so much that I don't want to see the ugliness of there. And I go, just go with me to Skid Row. I'll show you ugliness. The second group are people that are practical people. They're like, I want to go there, I want to do something, but you need to be that bridge. Recently that Vahan Povosian that I was talking about, Instigate's co-founder, CTO, I just connected him to another good friend of mine, Paolo Pirjanian, who is the CTO of a company called iRobot, which is the world's premier robotics company. Now, it took 9 years of conversation and 1 meeting with Vahan. But that's a commitment, right? I'm going to get him to Armenia if it kills me, right? And I think these are the things that are like personal quests And it's fun, it's not, I mean, there's a little bit of sacrifice, but most of it is just sort of like a challenge. How do we get things done? How do we engage each other in community building? Measuring progress and reporting transparently on a monthly basis. How hard is that? It's not that hard. Annual progress and lessons report. You know, hey, we tried this thing that didn't work. And let us tell you about what didn't work, and we're going to try this other thing. In Armenia, nobody wants to give you bad news. But by the way, nobody anywhere in the world wants to give you bad news. Right? If they show up with a bad news, what are they going to get? They're going to get criticism. Nobody wants to be criticized. But these are things that we've got to get comfortable with. I've got 4 more slides, so bear with me. We can leverage and accelerate our positive achievements. TUMO Center for Creative Technologies. There's 6,000 kids that are going there now. I told you that there's 385,000 kids from grade 1 to 12. But there's only about 100,000 kids from age of 12 to 18. There's maybe 100 to 140,000 kids. Well, maybe if we have 20 more TUMOs, or not necessarily to that elaborate sort of design or whatever, but that sort of the essence of TUMO, well, you can cover the entire republic. How cool would that be? Is it hard to do? Not that hard. It just needs just a little bit of money that we're already sending, but not necessarily sending to the right programs. IT sector investments, education and startups. I've talked enough about the IT sector. American University of Armenia, it's an amazing campus. But we don't, Hargo can tell you more details, but we don't really have that many professors that are there full-time. Right? Professors come in, teach an 8-week or 10-week course, and they're out. Well, no, that doesn't cut it, man. We want professors that are going to commit 3, 4, 5 years, and they're going to say that they have a vested interest in seeing these students learn the subject, apply the subject, be challenged. So I think the first 22 years we've been investing in infrastructure, buildings and roads and all that stuff. Maybe the next 22 years we need to invest in people's minds, culture, values. Wings of Datev complex. You know, when that was created by Ruben Vartanian, everybody criticized him. They're like, what the hell is this? You know, this is sort of like, you're trying to kind of, it's an ego thing. No, it's not. 250,000 people have gone and taken that ride. Just in 3 or 4 years. 3 years. You know, I went to Datev before that. I went to Halitsor. I've been going to Armenia for 14 years, so. By the way, I've only seen like 5% of it, and I'm not happy about it. And those villages were dying. Now you can see, there's vibrancy. There's people from all over the world go see it, and I think we need projects like that. And now that one was, $40–50 million of, one philanthropist. Actually, he got a lot of his friends to involve too, but he was the main money. And TUMO was mainly Sam Simonia, which is $50–60 million in investment. But hey, we can't take it with us, right? I mean, you gotta kind of give it back and make something happen with it. But these are projects that are world-renowned, world-class, and they're also part of this whole quest for excellence that I'm talking about. We have 55 regional robotics labs now in Armenia. Each of them costs about $2,600 to make. And in this last Digitech that Jakob and Arek and a few of us were there were 13, 14, 15-year-old Armenian kids that had designed an unmanned aerial vehicle for, for like agricultural application. To, like right now, when you want to sort of like put pesticides, you have these big airplanes that fly. It's like it takes like 1/20th of the cost of like the current way of doing things. These are 13, 14, 15-year-olds. They had created another robot that, for like air duct cleaning, like air conditioning, where the robot is actually climbing into the air ducts, and via a camera reports back where the stoppage is, so that you don't need to send a human being in there. I'm talking, these are 13, 14, 50-year-olds. That's the possibility of future. Let's start investing in those types of things. Priorities and 100, and I know this is an eye chart, I'll just read it for you rapidly. English language instruction from first grade and Army as soon as possible. Programming and tech education from first grade and in the Army as soon as possible. Are these ideas that we can talk about, that we can all do a letter writing campaign, say to the government, say, hey, here's the things that we think is going to be valuable, and get, you know, every one of us here has 100 people that they can go to. That's 6,000 signatures. Maybe those people will go to 100 other people. Maybe that's 60,000 signatures. I don't know. Provide low-cost computers to every student. There's an Indian guy in London that has created this $40 iPad sort of knockoff, basically. A tablet. $40. He just convinced the regional Indian government to buy 100,000 of it. It's a cheap internet appliance, and it goes to all the students in that region. Can we do that? Of course we can do that. We can build those things in Armenia. I mean, all the parts are like standard parts. The operating system is free. To give every child in Armenia internet access through an iPad is $20 million. And the Army. It's 365,000 kids and 50,000 people in the Army. At $50, it's $20 million. And we don't even have to write most of those checks. We can, you know, a lot of Armenian families already have computers. You can just sort of help them and say, we're subsidizing it by $25. Maybe it's a $10 million expenditure. Recruit 3,000 English-speaking young and old professionals to team teach. I told you there's 900 communities, 1,400 schools. If, you know, buy yourself to go to a village is it's a tough proposition, but by going there with another friend, it might be a very doable thing. We have a lot of retirees in the U.S. that are, you know, not necessarily spending their time as fulfilled as they can. I don't know, maybe I'm making a judgment, passing judgment on people, but they can go there, they can go hang out, they can go take a village, they can teach them stuff, they can teach them English at the minimum. But my idea is that if we can get 3,000 Armenian graduates from the U.S. to go to Armenia and get $12,000 a year, which is $1,000 a month, which is plenty of money to live. Actually, you will save a lot of that in Armenia if you live there. That's $36 million. That gets 3,000 kids, 3,000 college graduates from the U.S. to go to Armenia and team teach in all of these schools. English speaking. They could be like that. Like take the English language instruction in all of these schools. Connect everyone through free or inexpensive national internet service. I mean, at least at the school level, it's not going to be that expensive. I'm happy to report that internet penetration is up to like 60% in all of Armenia. That's amazing already, right? You know, maybe if we make it, you know, free or maybe subsidized a little bit, it'll be 100%. Expand 2 more. IBE is that amazing high school that Father Mesrop and his cohorts have created. If you haven't seen the IBE school website, please go see it. Please support it. Consider supporting it. It's an amazing, amazing thing. I mean, kids out of that school are getting accepted to MIT, Princeton, Moscow State University, University of Switzerland. Amazing, amazing work that those people are doing there. That could be the model that could be replicated across the country. So if you did 10 regional hubs, regional 2 more IBE hubs, that's $10 million. Fund robotics labs in every school. That's $4 million. That's $2,600 per lab. And by the way, the robots are built by one of Vahagen's sort of subsidiaries. They have 3D printers, so they actually print the parts that make the robots. And it says made in Armenia all over it. They create this little board computers, which is like $25. They've actually built it for $25. And they have written Armenian software. I forget the name of the software, but basically you go to a village, and that village can put their name on top of that software. It says, oh, this was built in Goris. See, it starts reinforcing in the kids' mind that they're builders. They're not just consumers. They're not just users of technology. They're actually building technology. Launch a global campaign to recruit 100 top professors to Armenia and to build their labs. $20 million, right? We're talking about building a road from Vartanis to Martagert. I don't know. I government should do that. Maybe the Armenia Fund maybe should fund this other thing. I don't know. I don't want to get into politics. I never like to. All the other operational costs is about $10 million. These are like rough figures. Like if I was like, you know, going to be proposing it. By the way, these things I've proposed, I've already talked about. I talk about it quite a bit. That these are things that we can do. They're achievable. What's the next $100 million? World-class science and technology university. I told you, American University of Armenia. It's an amazing campus. But it's buildings. We need minds, we need professors, we need people that are committed to the country. We need people that will take 2-year sabbaticals. And you know, you pay them. Don't tell them to take a financial hit because they want to help Armenia. You know, we've got professors at Stanford and Berkeley and all over the place. No one has ever asked them. By the way, I have asked them. I've said, has anybody asked you to consider to go to Armenia and create your lab there? Every single one of them has said no. Well, that's an issue, right? Maybe that's something that we can, propose to put it up there. Recruit 100 to 500, top Armenian or non-Armenian professors to go to Armenia to create their labs. Because a university is not just a building or a set of beautiful buildings. It is professors, it's minds. These are the things that we need to invest in. Maybe create a $25 million venture capital fund. We have one now, a couple of amazing people. One, Pierre Haynes, who's from Singapore, half Armenian, half German guy, and Manu Kerbinian that have just started this, a $6 million fund. They are starting to make investments, but maybe we should do like this annual $25 million investment. Very much modeled after what Israel is doing with their Birth Foundation grants. It's $100 million. That one's $100 million a year. There's a lot of amazing things that you can learn just off the internet. EDX, Coursera, these are like amazing programs from Stanford and Harvard and all the great schools in the world that are free. All you need is a fast internet access. And hopefully maybe a monthly broadcast by the president that comes out and says, hey, these are the things that we told you we're going to do. Wouldn't it be amazing if Serge Sarkisian got up there and said, you know what, every kid in Armenia is going to get a computer, every kid in Armenia is going to get internet access, and who cares whose idea it is? Somebody's got to champion. And maybe we'll have a 24-hour, 24/7 TV station that will counter the crap that's on the Armenian TV. I mean, somehow these ideas have to disseminate to the general population, where people can look and say, you know what, see themselves in the success stories. See themselves in the Hovhannes Aloyans and the Vagn Bogosians and all of these amazing Armenian entrepreneurs and artists and whatever that have already created amazing stuff in the world. So why is Armenia poor? It is poor because of you and me. How can Armenia prosper? Again, through you and me. And I really would, I know I've gone long, but I want to indulge you for 2 minutes. I want to read this thing. This is by Teddy Roosevelt. It says, it is not the critic who counts. And I know all the younger people are nodding their heads, they've seen this before. Not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. This is our challenge.
Thank you, Al. Thank you, Paul.
Any questions?
Any questions? Any? Yes.
You mentioned Rafi Avanesian, who gave his last 20 years in Armenia. And knowing Rafi, I'm sorry about his treading in water, because the political system is such, with the Soviet system still there, and will be there for another 70 years probably, is not giving him the chance to do what he can do and do some of the things you're talking about. So it's poor because of the political system. And also, another thing is, you might have seen on that, I know a doctor who every year for the last 6 years